Coming up at 11, one Pikeville police officer is back on duty after being injured nearly 6 months ago.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Olivia Calfee. After one Pikeville police officer was injured in a foot pursuit, doctors believed he would never be back in uniform again, but he set out to prove them wrong. WYMT's Jordan Mullins has more about this officer's story and how he returned to serve his community despite all odds.
In June 2022, Pikeville PD officers were serving a warrant when an officer went down during a foot pursuit.
I could hear, I thought he broke his leg at first. That's how loud the sound was from his foot. I knew he was hurt.
After stepping in a ditch, Captain Russell Blankenship believed he simply had an ankle sprain, but doctors discovered it was much worse.
Ended up, it was a little more than that. Went and had it checked out, had MRI, and ended up being I tore a tendon and ruptured a couple of ligaments in my ankle.
Doctors said Blankenship's injury could have ended his career.
A lot of people, a lot of individuals would have just quit and went home. But Russell doesn't do that. Russell don't quit.
But after surgery and 6 months of rehab and recovery,
the recovery process was a lot slower than what I thought it was going to be. A lot of therapy. It took, I was off almost 6 months with it. And a lot of that, probably half of that was non-weight bearing.
Blankenship returned to his post on Monday to continue his service to the community.
When I got hired here, I signed on and said I would never leave this place, and I'm going to get my 20 years in, if possible. I owe it to the community, I owe it to myself and my family and friends.
Returning to duty and never giving up. In Pikeville, Jordan Mullins, WYMT Mountain News.
Blankenship also had a birthday on Wednesday and said being back to work was the best present he could have received.
Well, unlike the past 3 nights, we're not tracking any wintry precipitation heading in our direction. We are, however, tracking some wintry temperatures that are only going to get colder as we head through the next 24 hours. A look outside right now, not as foggy up at Pine Mountain right now in Letcher County along US 119. For the most part, quiet. We do continue to see some of the snow and sleet accumulated on the side of the road, and it's not going anywhere if it doesn't get direct sunlight over the next couple of days. A quiet view from the campus at UVA Wise. 32, the current reading there. Most of us are within a degree or 3 of freezing. For the most part, it's chilly out there, and it's only going to get colder as we head into tonight. Pinpoint Doppler remains mostly a clean sweep through the region. Our next system, we're kind of in between systems. There's one system to our south that's brought consistent rainfall to portions of the deep south, and you'll notice a few snow showers moving onshore from Lake Erie into northeast Ohio. That's a weak frontal boundary that's going to give us an opportunity for much colder air later on tonight. We've still got a ways to go. 25 a low tonight with that slow clearing as we drop those temperatures big time. Details on when we bring them back up in a few minutes. Olivia.
Thank you, Evan. We had the chance to sit down with Senator Rand Paul today. He says he believes the COVID-19 public health emergency should have ended before the Biden administration's May 11th date. He says the emergency added to our nation's debt. He also says the federal government needs to get a handle of its deficit.
I am sympathetic to him, but it's like if we had a surplus, we could debate sending surplus money. We have a deficit. So essentially, we're borrowing money from China to send it to Ukraine, and I think that's making us weaker overall. So I think that we have to address this, or I think we'll be consumed by the inflation.
During our interview, Paul said he was impressed with how the Kentucky legislature responded to the flooding last summer. The Appalachian Pregnancy Care Center held its annual Give Life event this evening, but it looked a bit different this year. The virtual event was hosted to raise money for the APCC to help in its effort to support mothers and women across Appalachia. Local official Senator Philip Wheeler also came to the live event, as well as a virtual appearance and remarks by Senator Rand Paul. Executive Director Kay Hammond says the decision to have a virtual event instead of the usual in-person banquet was mostly due to severe flooding in July of last year, and it will ensure more money goes directly to helping women in the region.
So this year with all the flooding, I just felt like that we really just probably couldn't do a live banquet. but we were able to raise, I just received another check, so we have raised $36,000. Woohoo!
As you can see, Hammond was thrilled to surpass the event's goal of raising $35,000 and says every bit of it will go to aid APCC with programs and other expenses. Student enrollment numbers have varied across the region since the flood, but one school district is seeing a continual decrease. While Jenkins Independent School have had an increased amount of students in recent years, Letcher County School Superintendent Denise Yonts says they are struggling to keep numbers up.
With the decline in jobs, the COVID pandemic, and now the flood. So our enrollment, we've lost 500 kids in the last 6-7 years.
Yonts says she hopes the 2 grants they recently received will help get more students in the schools. Lawmakers return to Frankfort next week to resume the 2023 legislative session. One subject that is up again for debate is sports betting. Several of our surrounding states allow the practice, but it remains illegal here in the Commonwealth. Julia Sandor takes a look at the issue.
Since 2018, many bills have been introduced to legalize sports betting in Kentucky. Nearly 5 years later, it still hasn't been legalized.
I hear people all the time telling me about driving over the border to Tennessee, Indiana, and now Ohio to make legal sports bets because they can't make them here in Kentucky.
6 of the 7 surrounding states legalize sports betting, and Thayer says Kentucky thrives off horse racing, but we're just a little behind.
In Kentucky, there's legal wagering on horse racing, so if you're here at Keeneland, you can bet on your favorite horse. But when it comes to mobile wagering, you can't bet on sports like the Super Bowl or the NCAA tournament.
We have a very long history and tradition of betting on horses here. I think this is just a natural extension of that.
Thayer says not only is there a social aspect of sports betting, but it will benefit the state financially.
Right now, any state revenues that would be generated from the taxes on sports betting would go into the permanent pension fund for future general assemblies to allocate to our various public employee pension systems like the teacher retirement system, the state employees retirement system.
While he's unsure about the odds of House Bill 106's success, he says he thinks they'll have a better chance than last year. In Lexington, Julia Sandor, WKYT.
Senator Thayer says that the locations in the sports betting bill would be limited to horse racing tracks. So you would go to the track and sign up for an account allowing you to do mobile wagers from anywhere. Coming up on Mountain News at 11, Tyree Nichols' death is placing pressure on the Biden administration to pass the stalled George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Plus, wintry air continues even as the wintry precipitation moves out. Details on a chilly couple